Day of the Dead, across alternate timelines. Let's open the vault for Day of the Dead, because this film has more alternate timeline variants than any other Romero work except Night. The Echo Vault records 7 major divergences, including the fully realized version of Romero's epic original script. I'll give you clean, structured, deeply detailed entries for each, the way we always do. Echo Vault. Notable alternate timeline variants of Day of the Dead, 1985. Below are the major, coherent variants, not just micro-branches, but full productions that existed in parallel worlds. We will begin with the most famous and work outward. Alternate Timeline Variant 1. Day of the Dead, the epic original script, fully realized. Echo designation. DOTDE 85 Prime. Closest to Romero's intended vision. Completed in multiple timelines, often regarded as George Romero's magnum opus, surpassing even Dawn in depth. Historical divergence point. In this timeline, George A. Romero refuses to compromise with investors after the success of Dawn, and instead secures a private co-financing deal with 2 independent European distributors. With full creative control restored, the studio panic evaporates, the budget triples, and Romero completes his 270-page epic as written. The massive multi-level bunker, intelligent zombie hierarchy, and large ensemble cast are all realized exactly as envisioned. This becomes the definitive cornerstone of the franchise in that world. Major differences. Vast underground facility with multiple levels, not just one.
Fully realized civilian sector above the military wing. 400+ survivors, not a handful. Society fractured into factions. Military, scientists, engineers, topside civilians. The domestic block, food, cleaning, childcare. Far more advanced bub-like zombies, including near-verbal ones. Scientists begin mapping a Z intelligence curve. 10 notable scenes from this alternate timeline variant. The zombie platoon. Multiple progressively intelligent zombies are kept in containment. Bub is just one of many. The chasm drop. Inside the multi-level bunker, a massive central shaft is used for transporting equipment. During a zombie breach, soldiers try to seal a mechanical elevator door, but dozens of undead pile in, pushing them back. A few soldiers are pulled in by the dead before being torn apart. Dr. Logan's sermon scene. Logan demonstrates that zombies perceive sound differently, using a wind chime cathedral. Visually impressive. The nursery block. Sarah and Billy enter the abandoned civilian nursery floor. Tiny handprints on the walls. Broken toys. Soft music still looping on malfunctioning speakers. A cluster of undead children silently stand in a circle, mimicking a long, broken, ring-around-the-rosy routine. The arena escape. A huge circular training arena where zombies are studied. This becomes the final battle zone. The breach in Sector C. An engineering team attempts to weld shut a bulkhead, but zombies crawl through ventilation shafts above them. One drops into the welding sparks, setting off an explosive firestorm that illuminates rows of undead crawling on the pipes like insects. Sarah's vision sequence. Hallucinatory nightmare where she witnesses an entire zombie civilization mimicking human life. The instruction room. Bub and the other intelligent zombies gather in the learning chamber, where Logan taught them basic commands. The lights flicker. On the chalkboard, crude drawings of human faces. The zombies point at the names written beneath each face, the soldiers they intend to hunt. The silence before the flood. A long, eerie sequence in an underground aqueduct. A distant rumble echoes. Sarah shines her flashlight on the far end. Hundreds of zombies shuffle forward in waist-deep water, moving as a single organism, eyes reflecting like catfish in the dark. Finale. Storming the Citadel. Intelligent zombies breach the lowest levels and systematically take the base from the human survivors. Ending. Sarah survives via helicopter, but the world is shown becoming increasingly organized under a new undead hierarchy. Alternate timeline variant 2. Day of the Dead. The Metropolis Cut. Urban variant. Echo designation. DOTDM85URB. A world where Romero moved the setting to a major city after a compromise with producers. Historical divergence point. Here, an early location scouting trip convinces Romero that the rural missile silo setting lacks visual variety. When the team tours abandoned Chicago subway lines, Romero becomes obsessed with the industrial labyrinth beneath the city. A last-minute rewrite shifts the entire story underground, leading to a denser, more urban survival drama. The decision also satisfies producers who wanted a more commercial setting, resulting in the only Romero zombie film set entirely in a metropolitan environment. Key changes. Entire story set in the subway tunnels of Chicago. Factions compete for territory. Rail hub, medical wing, maintenance tunnels. Bub is replaced by a librarian zombie who remembers books. Tone. Industrial, grimy, constantly echoing with subway ambiance. 6 notable scenes from this alternate timeline variant. Library of Ghosts. A brilliant sequence where the librarian zombie tries to alphabetize shredded books while imitating human sorting behaviors. This is the world's introduction to intelligent undead. Tunnel column collapse. A subway pillar crumbles, trapping a survivor beneath rubble. Dozens of zombies descend from maintenance ladders, slowly surrounding her while she screams for help from above. Moments before help arrives, she's devoured by the dead. Peter Hale's confession at the turnstile. Hale admits he once worked at this subway station. He recognizes a uniformed zombie he used to share lunch with. Instead of shooting him, he quietly closes the gate. The silent train car. The survivors open an abandoned train car. Inside, commuters sitting upright, still buckled, perfectly preserved, until the lights flicker and they all turn their heads at once. The broadcast room. The survivors rig an emergency PA system to call for help. Someone answers, but it's only a looping, recorded message from years ago. The group realizes they are completely alone in the city. The masked horde. Zombies wearing decayed masquerade masks from a collapsed underground nightclub stumble out in a wave of glitter, feathers, and shredded clothing. Final image. The survivors climb to the surface at dawn. Chicago is silent except for pages blowing from an abandoned library. Alternate timeline variant 3. Day of the Dead. The Cuba Escape Cut. Echo. Designation DOTD-C86-ISLE. A timeline where Romero shot the originally planned Cuban evacuation third act. Historical divergence point. This branch diverges when Romero successfully negotiates for permission to film in the Florida Keys and off the coast of Havana, something the real-world production could never afford. An alternate tax credit scheme offered by the Cuban Ministry of Culture in 1984 makes location shooting feasible, inspiring Romero to revive his original Escape to Cuba third act. The story becomes a maritime odyssey filled with ocean horror, fog-drifting corpses, and the haunting beauty of a civilization collapsing against tropical shores. Major differences. Story begins in Florida Keys. Goal is reaching a large civilian enclave in Cuba. Bub has a female counterpart named Bella who follows music. 10 notable scenes from this alternate timeline variant. The Raft City, a floating barricade community of survivors, visually stunning. The Raft Drifters, dozens of bloated, half-floating zombies caught in a tangle of fishing nets drift silently into the survivors' boat path. The Fog of Corpses, dozens of zombies drifting in ocean fog that mask their sounds, startling patrolling survivors.
The Lighthouse Feast. The group reaches a lighthouse, only to find its rotating lantern illuminating a sickening ritual. Zombies clustered around the keeper's mutilated body in a spiraling pattern drawn by the light. The Fake Coastline. A painted backdrop is used by military deserters to lure in survivors.
Salsa Club of the Dead. Inside a ruined Havana nightclub, zombies sway in jerky approximations of dance moves, imitating couples trapped in an eternal ballroom. Cuban radio station broadcast. Distress calls intercut with salsa music. A survivor discovers the DJ is one of the undead. The Dock Massacre Echo. They reach the Cuban dock and find dozens of zombies frozen mid-motion, as though replaying their final panic in slow, jerky echoes. Fog of voices. Thick fog surrounds the boat. Dozens of whispering voices echo through mist. Survivors? Or zombies mimicking speech? When the fog clears, an entire passenger liner full of undead drifts past. The finale. Characters ride a stolen Coast Guard boat toward a burning Havana. Alternate timeline variant 4. Day of the Dead. The Science Triumph Cut. Echo designation DOTD-S87 Cure. A timeline where the studio insisted on a more uplifting ending. Historical divergence point. In this timeline, a nervous executive committee at UFDCI, United Film Development and Communications International, demands a more optimistic, sequel-friendly tone after test screenings of Dawn-adjacent projects veer too bleak. They push Romero to expand Logan's research arc, leading to an altered script where the inhibitor formula works and coexistence becomes the theme. Romero, exhausted from budget battles, agrees to the lighter shift, producing the only hopeful entry in the franchise, one that spawns its own coexistence subcontinuity. Differences. Logan's research succeeds. A chemical inhibitor slows zombie aggression. Intelligent undead become cooperative. Military collapses, but science sector rises. 6 notable scenes from this alternate timeline variant. Bub's piano lesson. A beautiful scene where Bub attempts to play a single musical scale and succeeds. The failed batch. Before perfecting the inhibitor, Logan's earlier test subjects lose their minds violently, twitching, spasming, tearing at the floor. Logan's letter. A dying Logan leaves Sarah a handwritten note explaining his vision of coexistence, begging her to continue. The operating table escape. A half-sedated zombie breaks loose during a medical test, causing absolute chaos as Logan and Sarah try to contain it without harming it. The first peace table. Humans and inhibitor-calmed zombies gather in a circle outside the bunker. Awkward. Quiet. But peaceful. Road to the surface. When they open the hatch to reclaim the surface town, dozens of dormant zombies fall forward like mannequins stored upright. Ending. Humans and tame zombies coexist in a makeshift surface town. This world forms the basis for later films in this strand, including a variant of Land of the Dead where intelligent zombie citizens work alongside humans. Alternate timeline variant 5. Day of the Dead. The Nightmare Cut. Echo designation DOTD-N85 Surreal. A fully surreal, dreamlike version closer to Martyrs or Jacob's Ladder. Historical divergence point. This variant emerges when Romero collaborates briefly with experimental filmmaker Andrei Zhulavsky during early storyboarding. Their conversations push Romero to explore the psychological and metaphysical implications of confinement, trauma, and memory. When the film loses half its funding during pre-production, Romero leans fully into expressionism and dream logic rather than large set pieces. The result is a surrealist horror opus where reality folds, time loops, and Sarah's perspective becomes the unstable center of the film. Features: Sarah's visions become real. Zombies mimic the living in eerie parodies of normal life. Logan never existed. He is a hallucination created by Sarah. Time loops. Multiple repeating deaths. 6 notable scenes from this alternate timeline variant. Miguel alive again. Sarah finds Miguel alive and perfectly normal until he crumbles into dust. The loop hallway. Sarah runs down a hallway where every door she opens reveals the same room, each time with a zombie in a different stage of approaching her. Sarah's childhood bedroom. She opens a bunker door and finds her old bedroom from age 12, untouched. A zombie sits on the bed wearing her father's coat. Bub as dream guide. In her dream, Bub points to chalk drawings on the wall in a child's handwriting that tells Sarah's own life story. The mirror confrontation. Sarah looks into a mirror. Her reflection is a zombie version of herself, slowly mouthing the words, "Wake up." The breathing walls. The facility walls expand and contract like lungs. Shadows of zombies press outward as if trying to break through skin. Ending. A long shot of Sarah sitting alone on the beach. No footprints, no helicopter, no escape. Ambiguous whether anything literal happened. Alternate timeline variant 6. Day of the Dead. Miguel's command.
Alternate protagonist cut. Echo, designation DOTD-M85, reverse. The timeline where Romero chose Miguel as the protagonist instead of Sarah. Historical divergence point. This world diverges when actor Anthony DeLeo Jr. delivers an unexpectedly powerful audition monologue that reframes Miguel as a tragic protagonist rather than a background casualty. Romero revises the script to focus on Miguel's guilt, trauma, and redemption arc. With Sarah shifted into a support role, the entire narrative pivots toward military collapse through the lens of personal suffering. The film becomes a character-driven psychological war story rather than a scientist versus soldier conflict. Changes. Story is told through the eyes of a guilt-ridden soldier. Bub becomes a mirror figure, representing Miguel's traumatic memories. The collapse of the facility mirrors his mental collapse. 6 notable scenes from this alternate timeline variant. Miguel's confession. He admits to Sarah that he once abandoned civilians during the outbreak, driving his guilt arc. Training room revolt. Zombies used for soldier drills suddenly coordinate, attacking as a pack and overwhelming the room. Bub mirrors Miguel. Bub mimics Miguel's gestures, revealing the connection between trauma and undeath. Rooftop pitfall. Miguel falls through a rusted catwalk into a pit of undead, but fights his way through in a frantic sequence. The bloodline corridor. A corridor filled with hanging IV bags and discarded limbs, a byproduct of Logan's experiments, becomes a battlefield.
The redemption charge. Ending. Miguel chooses to release the zombies intentionally, sacrificing himself to end Rhodes's reign of terror. Miguel sacrifices himself to save the group, deliberately releasing zombies to take down Rhodes and the soldiers. He achieves redemption instead of tragedy. Alternate timeline variant 7. Day of the Dead. The Dark Sky Cut. Bleak post-apocalyptic ending. Echo. Designation DOTD-D85-Void. The darkest known variant. Historical divergence point. In this strand, Romero loses the final round of arguments with his financiers and is forced to reshoot the ending after disastrous test screenings of an upbeat cut. Furious, he secretly re-edits the film in the final week of post-production, restoring all bleak elements and cutting every hopeful note. The studio, unaware until the premiere,
releases the darkest Romero film ever made, a nihilistic, crushing vision where no one survives and the bunker becomes a tomb sealing humanity's extinction. Key differences: no hope, no beach scene, no escape. Facility collapses completely. Zombies overrun everything. 5 notable scenes from this alternate timeline variant. The nursery. Echo. Sarah discovers a small underground nursery where children zombies mimic school routines, a ritualistic echo of the life they once had, including a finger-pointing roll call. Sarah's last tape. Sarah records a goodbye message on an old reel-to-reel machine, saying she still hopes someone, somewhere, survived. Feeding frenzy in the commissary. Dozens of zombies claw at the food storage room, ripping open ration packs and devouring them like animals before turning on the humans.
Bub's recognition. Bub recognizes Sarah and does not attack. A moment of tragic, almost connection before chaos erupts. The flooding of Level 4. As Sarah flees, she wades through a submerged hallway. Zombies float suspended under the water like puppets waiting to rise. Final scene. Bub leads a horde into the research sector. There are no survivors. Bleak ending. Across the Echo Vault, Day of the Dead is not a single story. It's a constellation of possible worlds, each reflecting a different facet of Romero's original vision. Some worlds realized the epic masterpiece he intended. Others drifted into urban horror, island odysseys, surreal nightmares, scientific triumph, or crushing hopelessness. In our world, we saw only one fragment. But through these echoes, we can glimpse what might have been. The lost scenes, the abandoned scripts, the parallel cuts, and the alternate endings that played out across nearby timelines.